How's it going, Critter Family? I hope you all are doing well. Today we are going over a video by the one and only The Healer Mama. Shout out to Healer Mama. If you have not subscribed to her already, go subscribe to her. Check her out. She's a great doggy mom, content creator, groomer, everything and anything and everything. She spreads really great information out there, and she's open and honest about her journey with Mr. Man, Mr. Sully right here, and his reactivity. So in this video, it's titled Your Dog Has Triggers, a Threshold, and Possibly Mommy Issues, Australian Cattle Dog Reactivity. So we're going to go over this. If it sounds like something you're interested in, then join along.
I know, everybody gets their cookie for video time. Why do you drool so much for cookies? Dog's got issues.
Oh my goodness.
So much slobber. No. For video time.
Aw.
I
love this shirt.
Why do you drool so much for cookies? Dog's got issues.
Oh my gosh, you can see dripping.
So much
Man,
slobber.
I wish Adonis would have been that interested in cookies. He was definitely more of a pepperoni man. Human food, real meat type man. He rarely ever had just regular biscuits, but I raised him to be a very spoiled little boy.
No. Get over here. Over here. Yeah, sit. There you go.
Aww.
Oh, goodness. So we're going to talk about a topic we're always talking about. You almost took my finger with that one. Thank God you're gentle.
So cute.
Here, you dropped a piece. Dog reactivity, right? So a lot of people are asking questions again about dog reactivity. And if you follow us, you know this little dude has been a challenge for me when it comes to that. And I mentioned before in previous videos that dogs have a threshold and dogs also have triggers.
They do.
So you have to find out what that is with your dog. And I'll have a story at the end of the video to tell you about something that happened recently. But, a dog can be triggered by, sights, sounds, smells, whatever. They can, and when trainers talk about dogs having a threshold, it's their limit. It's how far you can get to a certain point before they have that reaction. Canine Tay actually has a really good video talking about
Oh,
helping
that
your
is so
reactive dog
sweet.
get used to, not get used to dogs, but like how to help your dog with reactivity. And she basically goes over the same stuff I've gone over in previous videos.
Thank you so much for the shout out, Healer Mama. I really appreciate that. I did not expect that. I didn't see that coming. But thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. And she's absolutely right when she talks about, reactivity and when a trigger is, what sets off a dog. And the threshold is what the dog's limit is. So say you're 20 feet away from what we would call the trigger, which is another dog, for instance, and your dog is barking at them, then they're over threshold. But if you move back another 10 feet, so you're 30 feet from whatever the trigger is, then your dog is under threshold because they're able to take a treat, they're able to sit and practice regular basic obedience and tricks with you, and you don't have to force them, and you don't have to ask twice, or you're doing this and they're just staring at the whatever the trigger is. So that's when they're over threshold. But if they're able to do all the things that you ask of them, they're under threshold.
Where you start off at a distance and you move your way forward. I'm having a day, guys. I'm so sorry.
I have this all the time.
You get closer to whatever is causing the reactivity when your dog is responding well to you. But I'll link her video down below. But everything I've done with Sully regarding his reactivity, including using a harness instead of just leading him by a collar,
that's
and things
perfect.
like that. Like,
oh, look at that
stuff
cutie.
has either been taught to me by trainers, suggested by trainers, or
Perfect.
you can watch any of his previous videos in the the Raising Sully playlist.
That was excellent.
Yes, it took me way longer.
So, if you didn't notice, for those of you who don't know, that what she just did with Sully was actually incredible, because she allowed him to look at the trigger. She does exactly what I would do. In this instance, she's at a distance. He's on what looks like a fairly loose leash, compared to however loose a retractable can be. But, and the reason why I say a loose leash is because when there's tension, it creates more anxiety in the dog, or excitement. The dog can be more excitable, or they can, for a case of reactivity, the dog can become more anxious. So that usually leads to more of a blow up if you have a tight leash. But in this case, she allows him to stand a distance away from the other dog, which is a trigger inside the house. The other dog is not reacting at all, which I imagine would cause him to react, but the dog is not reacting, so that helps him out. And he's below threshold. He's able to look at the dog and look away and turn away on his own. She may be calling to him in the video, but, even if she's able to call to him and he turns away and comes to her, that's terrific. That's great progress. And what I usually recommend is that you allow your dog to just stand there and when they're below threshold and take in the environment and be able to see whatever the trigger is and wait for them to look away on their own. And if they do, terrific. And if they don't, you have to make a little clicky noise, or a kissy noise, and to get their attention and they look at you, then that's okay too. And as soon as they look at you or they look away, that would be when I would mark, with the clicker or yes, and then I would reward. So I like to practice that versus just constantly keeping the dog's attention on, a treat or myself, or just be so distracted that they're blinded. I don't want to blind my dog. Put on blinders and keep them from seeing whatever the trigger is until it's gone, because that you end up stuck in this limbo kind of thing, where your dog is never actually becoming exposed to whatever the trigger is, whether it's a dog, a bicycle, a car, a person, a trash bag, or whatever it is. So that was really, really, really good.
Okay with things, and reactivity definitely
allows him to look at it.
Fear.
He looks at her
in a lot of cases,
and he moves on his own.
I
Beautiful.
Agree with dog trainers saying that that's the only reason dogs are reactive. I've also talked about how reactivity. I sometimes think there's a fine line between reactivity and just a protective dog, which
definitely
I'll link that video maybe here.
I think that's also very important to mention because. My Shiba was not necessarily protective of me unless there was another, he would kind of not necessarily resource guard in a really bad way, but like if another animal were coming over to give me attention, or Hermes, I was giving him attention, Adonis would kind of come over and try to scare Hermes away. And so I would have to, make sure to teach Adonis it's okay to have patience. I can play with Hermes and I can pet another dog or the cat or whatever. And then, you don't have to protect me as a resource for yourself. He's never been one that I know of to protect me, as in, he's like, hey, stay away from my person because I'm fearful. I think Adonis would probably protect himself over me and leave me to be, taken away by the birds or whatever is attacking us. I think he's more of he was more of a, like, see ya, bitch, kind of survival of the fittest type thing. But anyway, so I think it's really important to understand personality of dog and if they are really just being protective. I've never had a cattle dog. I don't have dogs like that. They are mixed, originally, I believe, mixed from the dingo way, way, way back when. So they have that, more independent mind, that more wild side to them, where they protect their family members.
Down below too, it's one of my videos. This is the video where I'm just going to suggest watching all these other videos, I guess. But when I'm trying to help my dog's reactivity, I always try to keep the situations controlled. And what I mean by control is, introduce them to a dog doesn't have reactive issues, like a calmer demeanor, and correct things when needed, things like that. I would never put a reactive dog off leash in a pen or any enclosed area with another dog, whether that dog is calm or not. I think that's bad training. I see a lot of trainers just take reactive dogs and throw them into situations. Or I also see trainers, use very abusive methods, which, yeah, it works. The dog stops being reactive, but then I think you've crushed that dog's soul.
And that's a very good point there, where I would never just force a dog into a situation either. I've worked with trainers, or I've done training, and then the person who had the dog ended up working with different trainers and whatnot. So I've seen trainers who have undone my training because they take the reactive dog and they just put him in a field with another dog and they just kind of let him go at it. the no muzzle, no conditioning to a muzzle, no nothing. As a last resort, if I need to get two dogs to be housed together, which is not, it's very rare, far and few between, few and far between. May use a basket muzzle. We may, we would condition the dogs to it so they're comfortable, and then we would let them, into, of course, watch them, make sure they have a harness and leash on so we can, have them dragging leashes and all that. We would take a bunch of precautions just to see if they would be okay together, and if not, then they have the muzzle on at least. But yeah, no, I don't. If I'm going to be introducing a dog that's reactive, to another dog, I want to make sure I know that dog's temperament. I want to know that that dog is balanced and they're calm and they're not going to take, offense to the dog, who is reactive, who may or may not be barking at them.
A little bit. And also I think it breaks trust with your dog to do this more.
And doing, using aversive techniques is teaching the dog learned helplessness. You just flood the dog.
Aggressive methods. And I know I sound like a broken record, but with this dog breed in particular, they are not trusting of strangers. It's not common to be a social butterfly like
that's
Gypsy,
like Adonis, very much like the Shiba.
Houses because she just wants to party. They are very leery. Even Clea and Gypsy both, as well socialized as they are, if they don't like you, they will let me know, or they will let you know with a warning. And what are you doing? What are you doing?
Somebody found the cookies.
Oh. Come over here and lay down. I'll get you a cookie. You just gotta give mommy a second.
I've been there before.
This is why we can't do professional videos, because it's just always a distraction here.
I mean, shoot, I've been there.
It's not uncommon to see a cattle dog, even one that's well socialized, do a warning snap at somebody.
Sure.
Or do a little growl.
They're opinionated dogs.
Like
they're honest. They're brutal. I appreciate them very much like Shibas.
It's just how they can be. Socialize the heck out of my girls, and like I said, they still have their, I guess, call it cattle dog moments, their dingo moments. Sometimes what we say, where they get a bad vibe and they don't want to associate with you. With Sully's case in particular, now you guys have seen my back and forth with how he's reactive and then he goes back to normal, blah, blah, blah. And for months now, he's been doing exceptionally well. Like, I don't have to worry about him charging or lunging at people. Or like he's doing amazing. Even when we went to the drive-thru recently, there was a new person there. He took the cookie, but very leery-like, and he growled at the person as soon as his favorite cookie guy came out. And he almost was protecting that guy, over the new cookie guy. But I always have to watch him. He's always going to be a dog I think I have to watch, but he's also a dog I'm always wanting to still try to work with. And
I think he's still very young, so you still have a long way, a long way to make some progress with him. And, training is for, there's management in training, and management is for the life of the dog. So when you're working and training with an aggressive dog or a reactive dog, when you're training with that kind of dog, you are, you're just working with management, and management can be for several years down the line. It could be for his whole life, and where you may just need to, be wary of certain people or certain things, or, if you're never able to completely break him of this, of a specific behavior where he's reactive to a certain trigger, then you just manage it the best you can.
I mean, you guys have seen him with Chief. I mean, he doesn't want to associate with Chief, and that's another thing, like I've said a million times before, cattle dogs, not just with people, they don't always want to socialize with other dogs. Yes, there's
exceptions. Very much like Shibas.
I've always said every cattle dog I've ever had in my life has had different levels of what they're comfortable with socially.
Absolutely.
And what they'll accept, and how social they are with wanting to greet people. But like even with Sully, he will once in a while attempt to sniff through the fence, but then he will get freaked out, and I can see the fear in him. Like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to scream and bark for the other dog to get away from me, and things like that.
And that's a very common behavior. I mentioned when I was working with a while back, I was working with an Australian Shepherd, and she was taught very aggressively and abusively. And so for her, in order to shut off the pressure of, a very powerful shot caller, she would go belly up. She would lay on her back. She would run up to you and she doesn't like people. She would run up to a new person and she would go on her back and she would go belly up. And and you think, oh, okay, that's an invitation to pet you because that's what you want. So you go to pet her and she starts growling and snapping at you. So she thought that was the right answer, even though she doesn't know how to get out of it. So even if she ran up to you and you didn't pet her, she didn't know how to get out of it. So she would still growl at you. And you might be thinking, well, dumb dog, or silly dog, why don't you just walk away? But dogs don't know how to get themselves out of a pickle. They get themselves cornered and they don't know how to get out of it. So we have to teach them the what seems obvious to us, the obvious choice, which is just walk away. We have to teach them that. I mean, in a way, think about it as, they're a rabbit and you're a lion. And the rabbit runs up to the lion and the lion says, hey, I'm not going to hurt you. And the rabbit, has to trust that when they turn their back to the lion, they run away, that the lion is not going to chase them. So with these guys, with the dog that I worked with, I would toss a little treat away every time she came up to me. And so then she learned, oh, okay, when I keep my distance, which she's more comfortable with, then she gets a good, a little treat. So you can practice the same thing with Sully and practice giving him that cue to move away before he starts spiraling up until he's over threshold and then he starts barking and going crazy. And it can happen pretty quickly too.
For the majority of the time, he leaves things alone and he just tries to focus on me and being by my side. But Sully also has some major mommy issues. I mean, he has a threshold, yes, and he's got things that trigger him. They don't trigger him as much anymore, but he definitely has mommy issues. And that's where I struggle with the reactivity when it comes specifically to him. Mm-hmm. And here's the story. So recently we went to go meet a friend and her dog, and we all three of them. And this was a neutral place that we all met up at. And as soon as we pulled into the parking lot and Sully saw our friend with her dog in the car, he immediately turned into reactive. Like, I really thought he was going to do very good at this, interaction because he's come so far. And for some reason, as soon as he saw them in the parking lot, I feel like that was the end of it. That was his first little trigger was, I see and smell something I don't know.
So my question is the window open, when the dog is in the car so he can actually smell them? Can he not smell them? What is the other dog's facial expression? Do they have an open mouth? Do they have a closed mouth? Are they staring? Are they barking? Are they whining? Or are they just looking at him like that little, American Bulldog or boxer type dog we saw earlier that he was looking at and looking away? All those things can be signals that can trigger our dog, that, we can say, okay, this dog is doing a certain behavior, so we can expect Sully to react to that. So we want to, either get more distance away from the dog until the dog is able to calm down, the demo dog or your friend's dog, so that way we could get Sully to calm down and then move closer. And even if that dog is doing absolutely nothing and they're just sitting there like a bump on a log, then then we can take Sully and just move a distance away to where he's below threshold. He's able to, look at the other dog and look back at you on his own. You don't even have to prompt him. You can ask him for a sit. You can say it once, and he can sit for you. He can, you can ask for a shake or a little trick, and he can do that for you. That's where he's below threshold, and that's where I would stay and just work, perpendicular to the dog or parallel to the dog or whatever direction you want to go in, and just work there, and then slowly increase or decrease the distance between you and the other dog. So then you would move up another 5 or 10 feet, and then do the same thing. And it just takes time.
And then once we all got to a different spot, we all took him out to go potty. He was immediately reactive. And here's where I screwed up. I should have tried to get him to focus. I failed on my training on this, don't want to call it an incident. This meet and greet,
Sure.
I failed. And he was already so worked up. I had my husband put him in the car and I went walking off with the girls. That was my second mistake. Because now I've just given him abandonment issues again. Because it was like, where did my mom just go? And she left me with that guy. Like, Sully, as much as he loves my husband, if I'm around, it's like, who is that? Like, I don't want to be with this guy. I want to be with my mom. Like, he is so focused on being with me. And that's kind of natural cow dog thing anyway. And I made a lot more mistakes. There was only one time where I did his focus command where he listened. But as soon as he, listened and got his reward or whatever, he went back to barking and acting crazy, and
So first off, I want to say, it takes a lot to be able to have the insight to honestly look at the mistakes that you've made. And that doesn't mean that it's the end of the world. It doesn't mean you're a bad person or a bad pet parent. I think that's great. I think that is really good insight that you know that what you can do differently next time. That's all it is. It's just learning. You don't have to be as hard on yourself as I am on myself. So I always tell people, please don't be hard on yourself. We all make mistakes. If only I could actually believe that when I tell myself that and not think, I'm like the worst pet parent in the world. But I'm working on that. But also the fact that he stops barking when you give him the focus, he looks at you, he gets his reward and goes back to barking. That tells me that he's still over threshold. So we want him to be able to do that without going right back to looking at the whatever it is and barking. So he's right on the cusp of being over threshold and under threshold. So move another 5 or 10 feet away, and then I'm sure that amount of distance might help him.
And then when I was spending time with my friend's dog and petting that dog and getting kisses, I could see him in the car just staring down at me, like I could see it in his face. So it was a multiple thing of.
I could see that same face on Adonis, so that's why I'm laughing.
Over threshold, and I kept thinking like, oh my God, I've just screwed everything up.
No, not at all.
And he's going to be reactive now for everything.
No. Dogs are really, really easy to counter condition. Any behavior is really. It just takes time and understanding. And you can have your dog be reactive in one moment, and you can still counter condition that in a controlled environment and get your dog to at least tolerate the other dog. They may not be friends. They don't have to be friends. I think that's, what she said as well. So I think that's, it's not the end of the world. Like, believe me, I've been there.
We went for a hike afterwards. We passed 5 groups of people. He
Good.
sat when I said focus, like when I told him to come to my side and focus, he sat, looked at me, didn't budge. He let all the people pass, no problem. The 5th person, though, that one, he did not listen whatsoever. He did not. Of course, we all got a bad vibe from that guy. But like,
I've been there too, where like I've walked past a pretty dodgy person, and I'm like, okay, what are your intentions, right? Not to judge anybody, but there's. It's just a thing you get, there's if you don't know someone's intentions and they're wearing a hood or they're covering their face or they're in, dark clothing or, it's just, what it is, it's just instinctive. But, and I trust our dog's instincts, more than my own.
Okay. So he didn't react to any person going by. And then we went to another hike and he saw Bernese Mountain Dogs and all kinds of other dogs. Didn't react whatsoever.
Awesome.
So with him particularly, and here's, if you got any advice, any of my dog trainers on this channel, here's where I get confused. It's like, okay, I know his triggers, or at least I think I do. And then he doesn't show any signs of being triggered. He doesn't show any signs of going over his threshold, like that it's too much for him. Like he stays calm and listens. But then I swear it's certain smells and certain people that he just gets bad juju from. And
it could also be the way that those people and or dogs look at him. If they hold eye contact too long, if they make a facial expression, if they smile, that could be intimidating to him. If the other dog looks at him and makes eye contact, all that can be, he could be spiraling very slowly, and his signals in his body could be showing, very, very small, minute little stages of him getting more and more aggravated that you may not notice. Or even, I may not notice if I were there, so sometimes that can happen. But I think working with him to be able to desensitize him to seeing those triggers at a distance until he's up close enough, I think that might help him, because he's finally able to be, desensitized to what he's not necessarily seeing.
It just sets him off. And that's where I still struggle with his reactivity. Even though every other day it's like almost perfect. Like it was really disappointing to see.
I've been there.
That it's still there that bad.
I've been there.
On that particular day. And I like I said, I know I screwed up really bad.
I mean, hey,
I think I let my
everybody has a bad
anxiety
day.
of watching him be so anxious kick in, and my brain just shut down. So
I do that
like
too.
I really thought all of this was behind us. Like even when I went camping just recently, with Sully and Gypsy, there was kids on bikes, which Sully usually really hates bikes. He does not like them. He didn't try to go after them. He didn't try to charge anybody. He just watched the kids. Like he was so calm with all of the things that were there. We had a freaking cat at the campsite directly across from us, running around free in and out of the RV that was across from us.
And it could be that maybe he's just so overstimulated that he doesn't notice any one thing. There's so much going on that he just doesn't, he's so, you know, overly stimulated and oversensitized that he's just, he doesn't react to any of it, any one individual thing, because everything all together is just, it's everything together.
Plus their dog. And he was fine. He was completely fine. It was like, oh, you smell nice to me. You're not coming into my bubble. I'm
exactly.
Good. I was even talking about this also with Jenna. You can check out her channel too. I'll link everything down below in the description. People forget to consider the dog's personality. Like,
definitely.
Yeah, yes, reactivity is based in fear. I will agree with that. And yes, there are traumatic things that dogs can go through that can cause reactivity.
Mm-hmm.
But personality, I wish more trainers would not mainly focus, but at least say that it could just be the dog's personality. It's because, and I've said this before too on the channel, it's okay if your dog does not want to be fully social with every dog in the world. And I guess
absolutely
my main method that I've always done with Sully
and with Adonis, his personality was he didn't like other dogs getting in his face. He didn't like other dogs. I mean, in general, he had been attacked a lot, but, he preferred the Spitz breed, or like he made friends with a wolf dog. And the one time we went to a park, go figure out, of every other dog that was afraid of this wolf dog, Adonis like, hey, cool, let's chill. You look fun. And they just equally respected each other because, or he gets along with other Shibas, that was his personality. So I think that's very important also to, recognize, yes, what your dog's personality is and what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with. Adonis loved kids. He didn't like dogs. Okay, great.
For teaching him not to be reactive is what I call the distract method. Mm-hmm. Like I will, and yeah, I've given him way too many cookies probably, but I try to focus him back to me with cookies. I try to use commands, like telling him to sit by my side or even do trick training with him to distract him from reacting to that and focus back on me. I mean, I've talked about all this and all the...
And I think that's a good method if you're in a bind, if you absolutely need him to be, if you're in a tight area. I would say don't necessarily go on hikes yet until he's been more desensitized to seeing these people and these dogs and these things at a distance, where he's actually able to look at them again, just like he looked at that little bulldog in the window. We want him to do that and look at you on his own, with every other situation, with one person, with a group of people, with people and a dog, with a person and a dog, just person with a stroller, just all sorts of things. You can go to the park and practice that. You can go on hikes, but, don't go on very narrow trails. And that can be your goalpost, is that you go from an open area to a very tight area, where, you can test his ability and your ability. And see if you had proper timing when working with him before, and you were able to train him to be comfortable in an enclosed area.
Previous videos on this channel, you can probably go to the search thing and type in reactivity and see a freaking long list of Sully's reactivity issues. But I'm still very proud of him because I've seen dogs that are way more reactive than him. I can still take him to a store. I can still take him to a drive-thru. I can take him camping. Again, like I said in this one video, I feel like there's a line between protection and reactivity sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
But I could be wrong. I'm not a dog behaviorist. I'm just
neither am I.
Just a dog groomer. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to click like and subscribe. And my best advice is to take your dog's reactivity in baby steps. That's
absolutely
just my personal opinion. And hopefully some of the other videos on this channel help you guys out in training. But honestly, if you've got a very reactive dog, worse than, what I'm dealing with, I would definitely seek out a trainer, and I would be careful on what trainers you might find on the internet.
Absolutely.
And on their advice, because
be careful with free advice. Be careful with the I hear Ellie crying out, so I'll end this video here. But be careful with the free advice that you get and work with a positive reinforcement trainer is all I can say. Thank you so much, Healer Mama, for this great video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you all think about this video. If any of you have any other questions, Healer Mama, if you have any questions, I'm always happy to help out. Of course, free of charge. I'm coming, Ellie. So go say howdy do to your little critters. Say howdy do for me. Give them some kind of love and they appreciate. And until next time, practice peace, patience, and positivity.